Welcome to Blue Team Village Project Obsidian. This is the IR 101, the Analyst Mindset. I will be your guide for this session. Let's start with a quick disclaimer. As part of any security investigation, we should be mindful that our action or report and the conclusion can lead to important decisions. And that's why we need to be responsible, we need to be respectful, and we need to be trustworthy. The conclusion of the investigation can decide to discipline or fire someone. In some case, to send to jail or maybe more. That's a giant responsibility, and nobody should take it lightly. We need to make our best and be matching the trust that all leaders are putting in our investigation to ensure that we have the best conclusion. To ensure this level of trust, the peer review or the dual control is an important control that should apply to most investigations. Most investigations, but the basic one, can and should be reviewed by your internal peer, your team colleagues, eventually other teams, your management, and the internal auditors if they are in your company. Depending on the context, it may be reviewed by external auditors, by lawyers, or journalists. And part of those will challenge you to say, have you done everything you could to find what's the root cause? What's the cause of this incident? Who is responsible or not responsible? Obviously, not all investigations are equal. We have limitations in resource, in time, in budget. No company can offer incident response to work for a year on an investigation without result, unless maybe you are in a security company and your customer want to, but it's usually a lot less time. There is a choose your battle perspective, but ultimately ensure you document and you communicate whatever limitation and trade-off you have to make to your team and to your management, who ultimately is the one to make the decision to say we need to continue the investigation or we need to stop the investigation. The mindset. How can we define a security analyst mindset? The first point would be the questioning mindset. You need to ask questions. You need to ask relentlessly questions. You can't expect to find a solution if you never ask questions, and it's pretty unusual to have an investigation where the solution is coming from the start. You could see that the other way is the detective mindset. You are the Sherlock Holmes of the police inside your company and try to understand what happens on the crime scene. And this crime scene evidence needs to be preserved to ensure that maybe the law enforcement, maybe an external retainer, or some lawyers could reach the same conclusions than you. You could see that from a feedback loop. We have some input, some evidence for which we will go through our internal process, through an internal analysis, which will give output and conclusion. But the trade-off and limitations that has been identified during this process and during this analysis should be reviewed to form a feedback and to be taken in account in the next analysis. There is no perfection, we are all human, small or big, there is always something we can share or improve. If not, it's often because people have not used enough the process or the tool or have not dig deeper. Again, sometimes if the conclusion is really too obvious, is it really the conclusion or something else? In the end, is it just science? The basic of scientific method is observation, skepticism, hypothesis, test, validate, and repeat. That's how a lot of scientific discoveries have been made, and that's how still a lot of things are worked upon. We can discuss if the domain of the FIR is the art or science, or a bit of both, but ultimately a lot of things need to be based on scientific method. So now let's go to the security incident. One key thing on the mindset of a security analyst is stress and not panic. As the incident responder, sometimes the incident manager or the leader of a crisis, we will have a lot of pressure of all the rest of the team, and sometimes stress can cause us panic and make wrong decision or wrong words. In those cases, it's probably good to disconnect 5 minutes, take your head under the shower, go for a walk and come back quiet. Because as the incident responder, we need to be able to inspire confidence to the rest of the teams that we are here to help and support during the incident and to help them drive the right conclusion. If we are the first one to panic, incident will go south in most cases. The other thing is we want to act fast, to not wait. During the pandemic, Michael Ryan, as the World Health Organization Health Emergency Director, gave this quote that is very applicable to the domain of security incident. Perfection is the enemy of good when it comes to emergency management. Speed trumps perfection. The greatest error is not to move. The greatest error is to be paralyzed by the fear of failure. If you need to be right before you move, you will never win. Don't wait on incident, but acting fast does not mean reckless. Obviously, you should be in a team and to have leader, and those are here to help, to listen, to talk, to try to understand where you see challenge, where you see conclusion. And your documentation is key. It will help to drive what needs to be fast versus what can be reviewed after and take longer. One common example for a security analyst is isolate a system. In most environments, isolating end-user system should never be an issue. We can argue if it's the case for VIP, but usually a single system should not create any impact on the company, or if it creates a significant impact, maybe it should not be an end-user system. If we are talking about product server environment, if your architecture is very resilient, maybe isolating should not create any issue. If it's fragile or legacy, you probably want to engage business owner before taking any action. There are likely some exceptions depending if you see a data exfiltration or a compromise and what's the level of confidence associated. Those should be known and agreed beforehand with your leadership. It should be in your documentation and match your company risk appetite so the analyst can take a decision in a fast way. On the investigation, process and methodology can vary, but usually the main goals of an investigation are minimize the impact of the incident and ensure lesson learned are done to be better prepared next time. That's where, again, your documentation, your playbook or standard operating procedure are key. It should be a step-by-step methodology with what are the must part and what are the optional part. The must be the key milestones that apply to the type of incident you are talking about, like data leak, ransomware, insider threat, and the optional parts that are depending on the context. Because obviously we can't foresee everything. Every incident has a bit of specifics that may go off the road, and for those we need to keep some flexibility. But the key milestone of the incident should be known and documented. So a few methodology. Coming from the questioning, the very first is the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, why, and eventually the how. This is typically also what many logging standards will ask, that part of this context is present in the log by default versus having the analyst to try to find out that during the incident. Another methodology would be the 5 whys, to say why at a high level an incident happened, and to dig deeper and deeper to find why this root cause was there. The observe, orient, decide, act, or the OODA loop by John Boyd is also a very commonly used incident response framework. From an analysis perspective, the known knowns, the known unknowns by Donald Rumsfeld is usually giving us a quadrant to identify what's known knowns, what's known unknowns, what's the unknowns, and again, identifies those trade-offs that we have to make during an investigation. More towards the threat intelligence analysis of competing hypotheses by Richard J. Ayer is trying to eliminate the hypotheses that don't match your evidence. The diamond model with the adversaries, the infrastructures, the victim, and the capability is another good source. And more as a training, the investigative mindset by Kristen Sanders is also an excellent resource. There are obviously other methodologies. This list is not by any means exhaustive, and those methodologies are not necessarily better than another. It depends. adapt to your context, to your company, to your team. One thing to keep in mind is be mindful of bias. The human mind is a maze and often is taking shortcuts for good or bad reasons. We can make similarity bias, we prefer what's like us, we can make some experience bias because we prefer to act quickly than taking time. We may have some historic or experience bias to say, yeah, I've gone through this situation and I know that it's that, but maybe it's not. And many other influence that our consciousness or unconsciousness can direct us without realizing. That's where the documentation during the incident should help to identify those limitations and trade-offs and along the peer review. It's a reminder that if we have not documented the incident properly, those biases will stay in the unknown or unidentified, and in this case may take a lot of the relevance of the evidence. To conclude, as part of a security analyst, ask questions, make hypotheses, validate, and repeat. It's essential to make our best that we are ready to be challenged, we are challenging ourselves, stay a lifelong learner, be hungry for knowledge, fail fast, don't be afraid of fire, especially in security. Security IR, security SOC are most often in the fire. We want to handle those reasonably fast, don't wait. Know your goals and expectations from leadership. Ultimately, the leadership of your company is making decisions on the risk appetite and how they want to handle things. Find what you like and help others. Through helping others, you will learn a lot, and that's why the community is very important to us, especially in Blue Team Village. Thanks a lot for attending this session. Enjoy DEF CON and have a great day. Bye. Welcome to Project Obsidian IR 101 Metrics and Quality Assurance. So as an introduction, metrics are requirements in nearly every company. It helps to evaluate impact, to make improvement over incident, and try to summarize the activity of the team to other group and to your upper management. It should help to identify easily which risk, which platform or component is most often at stake, and where improvements are more valuable. It's often ignored, feared, or dreaded by individual contributor, as it's often not the most fun part of the job, but it's an important component if you want to communicate what's happening inside the team and where action should be taken. And as such, it's one of the reasons it's a subject of this session. A few recommendations. Try to make it easy. You don't need to spend days, weeks, or months to try to elaborate your first dashboard. Start easy, start with one or two metrics, what fit your context, what you like. Make it automatable. You don't want to have to work a week to generate those metrics every week or every days. Try to tell a story. The metrics are important, but the stories they can tell either by themselves or either by some extra narrative added by the team are essential. Allow people to get more context. Even if you get emphasis on a few metrics, it should not be difficult to ask questions and to get answers to those questions. Really, the metrics are also one starter for the discussions that can follow and should follow ideally. Last, ensure it fits for audience. Are you targeting operations, tactical level? Are you targeting management, top management, and be more strategic? A few common metrics, not limited to security incident, but general IT incident. The number of incidents per severity, per hour of day or day of week, per application, platform, or geography. The mean time to acknowledge, when basically a human is taking over the ticket. The mean time to repair or contain or fix, and the cost of repair. The mean time between failure, more inspired by old disk drive. The availability, either as an uptime or either as successful request, typically if you are using error budget. Keep in mind, we are not talking about one server uptime, which is nowadays largely irrelevant. We are talking about a service uptime, which hopefully is based on multiple servers because of load balancing, high availability, and so on. And the error budget that has been popularized by the Google Site Reliability Engineering book. If you take more on the angle of the SOC and IR, the most common metrics would be the dwell time, time between the cause of an incident and the compromission and its discovery. Obviously, a lot of hype has been made over the past decade on the kill chain and more recently on the MITRE attack to say, okay, at which step of the attack are we? We want to know the outcome, the false positive, the true positive, but also in many cases, is it a duplicate ticket? Did we see the same thing a few days or a few hours before and still have a different alert or ticket? Not easy, but the identification of any loss, any money loss, time involvement, staff involvement, or more condensed with the number of FTE, or the number of systems rebuilt, or the external communication. Did we communicate to public, to customer about this incident? The source of notification, is it part of our automated alert? Is it manual from threat hunting or some other activity? Or is it a third-party notification? Eventually, any type of control chain can say where our controls are creating the most alert and what are the controls that are more creating false positive versus the control getting the true positive. As part of the quality insurance, we want to reevaluate those metrics regularly. One of the most common representation is the Shewhart or Deming wheel that's used in ISO 9001 and many other ISO reference, more commonly known as the Plan, Do, Check, Act. And here the check is really the essential step, because those metrics, those validation are the way we can ensure that our process and the response we get to security incident have been appropriate, and if we can make things better for the future. As part of those checks and as part of the review, the peer review and the dual control are critical in security. You want to make it easy to ensure the process is applied regularly, randomly selecting ticket, using an online short form for quick evaluation, qualify if things has been handled appropriately, qualify if there's been a good communication, good lesson learned, whatever match your environment. And last, communicate this review result, share it back in the ticketing system, in the team chat, directly to the analyst, to management, whatever form is appropriate, be it as a chat message, be it as a document report or a BI report. To summarize, like for anything in security, don't assume, verify, sample your data, automate it, communicate, and show the value that the IR team is bringing with less bias. There has been excellent reporting on this by John Esinski and Expel team in 2020, especially based on ISO 28591 and Jupyter Notebook. I recommend you to check those work because they are really inspiring and very helpful to build your own metrics. Thank you for attending this session. I hope you enjoy it, enjoy DEF CON, and continue the conversation on Discord. Thanks, bye.